Hello, collectors. We're going to take a look at the Monsters Unleashed title from Marvel Monster Magazine. This ran from 1973 to 1975. This first issue has a cover by Gray Morrow and interior artwork by Pablo Marcos, Ralph Reese, Sid Shores, Doug Wildey of Johnny Quest fame, Tony DiPreta, Al Ede, and Gene Colan. This title featured a lot of Marvel's Monster of Frankenstein and Man-Thing. But one good thing about Monsters Unleashed, there was a good variety of things here. And of course, just like the other monster magazines by Marvel from the time, it featured a good mix of comic book art stories as well as some photos and features, mainly dealing with horror films of the day. And there were some good ones in the early and mid-70s. Okay, this number 2 here, the cover is by Boris Vallejo. Interior art, John Buscema, Sid Shores, Jesus Blasco, Bill Everett, Frank Bruner, and Ralph Reese. And I've sung the praises of Frank Bruner and Ralph Reese before. Those two guys are awesome in my book. And this is number 3. Gorgeous cover by Neil Adams. Man-Thing never looked better. Interior art, Gray Morrow, Pablo Marcos, Ralph Reese, Herb Trimpe, George Tuska, Klaus Janson, Jack Davis from a reprint, Win Mortimer, Tom Sutton, Vic Carabata, Gil Kane, the Krusty Bunkers, Neil Adams, Ralph Reese, and Dick Giordano made up the Krusty Bunkers for this one. That's what Neil Adams called his little group. Sometimes it included Alan Weiss. And also you had Gahan Wilson and Neil Adams. Fantastic art in these issues, as well as the gorgeous covers. Here's number 4, cover by Albert Pujolar. I might be butchering that name. I apologize if I am. Interior art, Pablo Marcos, John Buscema, Sid Shores, Win Mortimer, Gray Morrow, George Tuska, Gil Kane, Klaus Janson, Neil Adams, Gene Colan, Dave Cockrum, Jim Steranko, Bernie Krigstein, Don Perlin. Nice variety of monster stories in these things. And this is number 5. This cover is by Bob Larkin. Art by Frank Bruner, Vicente Alcazar, Neil Adams, Gil Kane, Ron Wilson, Frank Giacoia, Ogden Whitney in a reprint, Juan Boix, Boix, B-O-I-X. I think that's maybe Spanish. Doing the best I can. I've not heard that pronounced, so I don't know. Paul Hodge in a reprint, John Buscema, and Win Mortimer. While I stumble over my names, you guys can enjoy these covers, so, you know, it's pretty much a win-win. Now, this is number 6. This cover is by Boris Vallejo. There's his Boris signature right there. Art by Ernie Chan as Ernie Chua. Early on, they could never get this guy's name right. Val Mayerick, Carlos Freixas, or Freixas, probably. It's F-R-E-I-X-A-S. Dave Cockrum, Don Perlin, Sam Queskin, Mike Plug, Hy Rosen, Win Mortimer, Alfonso Font. Yeah, I got some Plug action in this one. Can't beat Mike Plug. Number 7. This cover is by Richard Hescox. Art by Ernie Chan as Ernie Chua. Val Mayrick, Al Williamson, Ralph Mayo. That's from that's in a reprint. Vicente Alcazar, Pat Broderick, Klaus Janson, and Carlos Freixas. On a lot of these, they didn't have the issue number on the cover. You had to check the indicia, really. Number 8. This cover is by Earl Norham. And art by Ernie Chan as Ernie Chua, Val Mayrick, Pat Broderick, Neil Adams, Maurice Severin, Al Milgram, Dan Adkins, George Perez, Rich Buckler, and Duffy Voland. Number 9, cover by Earl Norham, art by Arvell Jones, Duffy Voland, Al Milgram, Val Mayrick, Don Perlin, Pat Broderick, and Young Montano. Man, that's a great Wendigo cover. Earl Norham turned in solid work on his covers. Number 10, this cover is by Vicente Segrelis, probably Segreus. Interior art, Pablo Marcos, Val Mayrick, Tony DeZuniga, Pat Broderick, Al Milgram, and Sanho Kim. And these covers are all great. I mean, there's not a dog in the bunch. This number 11 here, the last issue from the regular numbering, this cover is by the great Frank Bruner. That's Gabriel the Devil Hunter. We'll take a look at him next video. Interior art, Dave Cockrum, Sonny Trinidad, Billy Graham, Val Mayrick, and Rico Rival. And here then is the annual. There was one annual. And it's all reprints, which was the case with the Marvel annuals for these monster magazines from this period. But, you know, I mean, it's all good work. So if you were a kid and you picked this up and you probably didn't have all of the other issues by any means and may not have had any of them, so it was all new to you. It's great stuff. Cover by Ken Bald. Of course, that's a new cover. Interior art, Ernie Chan as Ernie Chua, George Tuska, Klaus Janson, Pablo Marcos, Gene Colan, Jesus Blasco, Juan Bosch, Gil Kane, the Krusty Bunkers on the inks, Don Perlin, Vicente Alcazar. So that pretty much covers it for Monsters Unleashed. That's all of them. It ended in 75. Finally, because Marvel had saturated the monster magazine racks so much that it put a lot of titles, you know, out, including themselves in that regard. So only Savage Sword of Conan continued pretty much. And of course later you had Conan Saga and all that, which reprinted a lot of Savage Sword. But, you know, a lot of people don't think that Savage Sword and Savage Tales and all that are monster magazines, but I always considered them monster magazines. I mean, they're full of monsters for one thing, and they're based on the Robert E. Howard stories, and he, you know, wrote some great horror in addition to his sword and sorcery stories. So, you know, I always thought of them as monster magazines. I mean, even at Marvel, the tryout for Conan was in Chamber of Darkness number 4. You know, so they're kind of more or less the same thing. You know, they're interlaced. sword and sorcery and the monster genre. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Other people may have a different opinion, and that's fine. We're all entitled to our opinions, I guess. And here, I didn't have any assistance for this video, but here's Man Thing number 1 with the great Frank Bruner cover. It's always sweet to see that. And Monster Frankenstein number 1 with the great Mike Plug cover. So I figured I'd put those out to frame the subject I was covering, because Monsters Unleashed was heavy on those two characters. And that's going to do it. Thanks a lot for watching. And we're going to see some deviltry next episode.